Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Robinson again, and we are going to continue our studies about negative and zero exponents. Our first term is zero exponent. When the exponent is equal to zero, the value is always equal to 1. So here we have an example of a variable, which is the letter x, and it's raised to the zero exponent, or power, some say, and that's equal to 1. So any variable raised to the 0 is equal to 1. Here we have negative 5 raised to the 0, and notice it's in the parenthesis, so whatever's in the parenthesis is being raised to the 0. So we really don't even have to look at that. We know automatically it's going to be equal to 1. Negative exponent is our next vocabulary word, and that's when the exponent is a negative number. So the exponent this time, the little number on the top, is going to be a negative number. Like here we have x raised to the negative 2. And I want you to note first that the value is equal to the reciprocal of the positive power. Reciprocal means taking a number and turning it upside down, and you have the opposite of what it was. It's upside down, whereas here we have x to the negative 2, and now we have 1 on the top and x squared on the bottom. So when we have a negative exponent, it's going to be positive power, so the exponent is going to turn to positive. That's why I changed it to a positive 2 instead of negative 2, because it got lost, and I turned it upside down. Where did the 1 come from, you may ask? Well, when you have a whole number or a variable, you can put a 1 underneath it, and then you can flip it upside down. And that's where the 1 comes from. Let's look at the next one over there. We have a 2 to the negative 3 power, or exponent, and again, the reciprocal means the 2 to the third goes at the bottom, and we put a 1 underneath the 2, and it goes on the top. So that's negative exponents. Here's a chart I want you to fill in. Take a few minutes and see if you can fill them in. We'll do a few just to see if you're comfortable. All right, 10 to the 0 power. Hopefully you got positive 1. 5 to the 0 power. Hopefully you know that's also 1. And even negative 3 to the 0 power, as I said before, anything in parentheses is equal to 1. Let's look at 5 to the negative 1. Remember, we put it upside down and changed the power to a positive. And 1, we don't have to write that as an exponent, because that's in algebra. It does not have to be written as an exponent or coefficient. So that's 1 over 5, 1/5. Now let's look at the parenthesis. Over here we have 3 to the negative 1 also. And notice the 3 is the negative 3 is in parenthesis. So that means that stuff in parenthesis is going to go on the bottom, and it's to the first power. So we're going to put just a 1 on top of that. So remember, we put a 1 underneath here, and we just turn it upside down, getting rid of the negative exponent and changing that to a positive exponent, 1, which we don't have to write. So hopefully you can get the rest of these by following those steps. So if you have questions, bring them to class. I'll be glad to answer them. Let's go on. Check your understanding. If you need to turn the video back and watch it again, do so. If you don't understand, write down your questions, bring them in the class. I'll be glad to answer them. Here's a question for you. Find the value and determine if the equation is true or false. These are some questions that deal with the laws of the exponents. So hopefully you remember those laws. If you haven't seen that video, it's a good video. Google up on YouTube Laws of Exponents with Dr. Rob. So 2 to the third times 2 to the third equals 4 to the 6th. So I give you a second. See what you think. All right. If you said true, well, let's take a look. The bases are 2, so that means we're supposed to leave the base the same. But that's a 4. That's not correct. That should be a 2 for the base. So automatically it's false, but let's look at the exponent. The exponent is 3 here and 3 over here, and we're supposed to add when the bases are the same. So that does add up to 6, so 6 is right, but the 4 is wrong. So this will be false. So our answer on this one is absolutely false because of the 4. They multiplied the 2 and 2 for some reason and got 4, but you don't do that. If you would have expanded it, wrote 3 2's here and 3 2's there, you would have had a total of 6 2's if you did it in expanded form. That's another way of doing it. But check out that video on laws of the exponent. Here's one for you, another true or false question. If the equation is true, 5 to the second times 5 equal 5 to the third. Here's another one. Which equation is true? A, B, C, or D? Check it. It's a very good problem. I see a lot of interesting fractions, and I even see a negative exponent down there. This looks really good. Wonder which one it is. Check your understanding so far. See if you understand it. If you're still uncertain, rewatch the video or write down your questions and bring them in the class. Ooh, simplify the expression. Now we're dealing with questions that we have to actually do some work and a little bit of orders of operation in order to figure out what the value is. So we're going to simplify this to make it simpler into one number. So if you remember orders of operation, you perform the operation that's inside your grouping symbol. So inside your grouping symbol you have 2 plus 3, and that gives you 5. And that's going to be raised to the 0 power. And we have 10 minus that plus 2 to the negative 1. Now we do our exponents next. So our exponent over here will be 5 to the 0. 5 to the 0, anything raised to the 0 power we learn is equal to 1. And we have an exponent over here, 2 to the negative 1. If you remember negative exponents, that's a fraction. And we're going to put that as 1 over 2 because we put the 2 at the bottom and put the 1 on the top, and that will give us 1/2. So we have 10 minus 1 plus 1/2. Well, 10 minus 1 is 9. 9 plus the half is 9.5. And that will give us our answer. So nice job if you got that right. So we had to do a lot of work there. So if you take a look, we had our expression. We started with the grouping symbols, 3 plus 2, that gave us the 5. And then we did our exponents. 5 to the 0 gave us 1. 2 to the negative 1. And remember, turn that upside down. Put the 2 at the bottom of the fraction. And put the 1 on the top. And now we have an equation, 10 minus 1 plus a half. So 10 minus 1, working from left to right, if you remember orders of operation, is 9 plus 1 half. 9 plus a half is 9 and a half. So that was a very good question. Here's another one for you to try. Simplify the expression to the lowest term. 2 to the negative 2 plus 4 to the negative 1. Hopefully you'll get that right. We'll go over that one in class. Check your understanding again. See if you understand it. If you're still uncertain, write down your questions, rewatch the movie. I'll be glad to answer them for you. Here's another question for you to try. We'll talk about that in class. Find the value of 2 minus 9 over 10 plus 10 to the negative 1. Here's another question. Simplify 4 to the 8th power divided by 4 to the negative 4th. Well, we at least have a multiple choice, so one of them has got to be right. So hopefully you'll pick the right answer in class. Here's something I wanted to mention about changing the positive exponents and to a positive exponent and to a decimal. We have 10 to the negative 3rd power. So we want to change that to a decimal. So we know 10 to the 3rd means 1 over 10 to the 3rd. And that means 1 over 1 over 10 times 10 times 10. And 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 10 is 1,000. So this would equal to 1 over 1,000. So that would be with a positive exponent of 1, or we could use 10 to the 3rd. And we wanted to change that to a decimal. If you remember the rules for changing fractions to decimals, somebody said in elementary school, when you have a fraction, you kick it off the roof and put it in the house and divide. But I'm going to say do something a little bit different. When you have 1,000, I want you to take a look at how many zeros are in 1,000. 3. And notice the exponent is 3. When you're changing to an exponent, a negative exponent, that's how many places it will be behind the decimal point. So it's going to be 0, 0, but 1 there. 3 places for 3 zeros. And if you take a look and you want to know where that 3rd 0 goes, it would go right in front of the decimal. So there are your 3 zeros if you're looking at it. And it's a decimal point right in between the first 2 numbers. I tell my students it's 1,000 backwards. If you write it backwards, you'll have that answer if you put the decimal point between the first and second number. So that's how you'll always get it. So here are a couple others. Give them a shot. Maybe you'll get that method and you'll know how to do it. So I hope you got something out of the video and you understand. If you did not, you can see me tomorrow and let me know how the lesson was, if it was easy for you or if you had difficulty with it. So write down your questions. See me in class tomorrow. Bring in your notes, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. So this is Dr. Robinson signing off. See you in class. Bye-bye.